Welcome to my new Kerbal Space Program series. This is going to be episode 0, and as usual, it will just be covering mods I'm using, getting the game set up, and other assorted housekeeping and whatnot. So if you want to get right into the action, go ahead and skip over to the first video. If you're interested in seeing how everything's set up, go ahead and stick around for a few minutes, and I will hopefully quickly get all this housekeeping taken care of. So, first things first, a quick mod list, as well as a few minor changes. Parts mods that I'm going to be using, as well as the main goal of the series, KSP Interstellar. It adds a very nice warp drive that is relatively expensive when it comes to research. So that is going to be the final goal of the series. Also, parts mods, KW Rocketry adds a couple alternate versions of the stock parts. B9 Aerospace, I believe it's the B9 parts pack, adds, I think it's currently up to 220 something plus new parts. Fancier parts, they tend to look a lot better. They also tend to be a lot heavier on computing hardware, so depending on how everything goes, once I start getting parts into orbit, trying to assemble space stations, it's going to be very likely that I'm going to be going in and trimming down a lot of these parts packs, just so that the game will run. I am still using the 32-bit version, primarily because it's less buggy, and once you start adding all these mods in, bugs are going to creep in anyway. And also the 64-bit version isn't really supported. So, anyway, back to the parts. The Tac Life Support system is the final actual parts pack that I'm adding, although that is more of a sort of support mod. That just makes it so that you have to pack snacks and other consumables. So, support mods, Deadly Reentry. I do like a little bit of realism in my games, and being able to just do a vertical plunge through the atmosphere is a little breaking for me. Kerbal Alarm Clock, just simply a timer to keep everything in track and in line, or on track and in line, rather. It just adds a clock that you can set that says, hey, let me know when this vessel's about to when you need to move over to this vessel to do a maneuver, so that you can keep everything where it needs to be going. MechJeb, for what it's worth, I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about MechJeb. I use it mostly for the instrumentation and the sort of, I need a quick solution to this burn. I don't want to spend 20 minutes on camera trying to get it set up and get it burning. Do it for me, please. I treat that more of a, hey, I've got a 10 to 15 person ground support crew beside me that I really don't have, and they're helping me punch in all the numbers. Also, for the very long burns, I'm thinking of the ion propulsion and other sort of electric-based drives. The short burns on those tend to be, let's call it 20 minutes, and the long ones can easily hit an hour. So I don't want to have to sit at my computer for an hour maintaining an orientation as I burn. Kerbal attachment system doesn't really add a whole lot. It's mostly so that you can plug craft A into craft B using part C. That's pretty much it. Ferrum Aerospace, yes, it is Ferrum Aerospace. I have it as the FAR mod. It redoes the atmospheric model, flight characteristics, drag. It makes it so that you have to have cargo bays, you have to have fairings, you have to keep your rocket looking like a rocket instead of a big flat panel that you're trying to launch through the atmosphere, which would never work. And final mod is the Vangard parachutes. I just call it the bailout mod. It seems logical that you have some sort of space program going, you're going to invent the parachute. It's sort of of course you would probably invent the wheel before you invent the supercomputer sort of deal. And the sort of tweaking, almost not really worth mentioning mods. The hot rockets, I do have that installed. That just changes some of the stock particle effects and makes everything look nice and colorful, let's say. And then I have the alternate resource panel, which it just changes the stock resource panel. It's a little bit different. I like it, sort of. I've been playing with it for maybe 2 hours. So, that covers the downloadable mods. I have made a couple of changes and will probably continue to make a couple of minor changes, tweaks and whatnot, just things I find a little bit silly or stupid or just not really realistic. By the end of this, I'm almost seeing myself as having a full, almost total conversion of the base game, just to get everything so it actually makes sense instead of the almost random nature that it currently is at. So, on the changelog, I have changed or decreased the cost of fuel lines from 150 to 50. Fuel tanks should be able to be wired, and once you've got the research done for that, they shouldn't cost that much, especially considering that you are going to be dumping them. And I should actually, if I can remember, look into the mod that keeps track of the jettisoned parts that have parachutes on them that would otherwise be recoverable or landable or land mostly intact, let's say, and give you credit for that when it comes to refunding vehicle cost. I have also removed the cost of launch clamps entirely. Those are the launch support struts that you put on your larger rockets, just to keep them more or less standing in the orientation that you want, and keep them from falling on the engines and crushing things. I'm concerned that that should actually be built into the Space Center, so if I need them, I shouldn't have to pay for them. And of course, they are left behind, and you can't really recover them. So, that's that. I am going to be changing the cost of the nose cone, if I can remember. Basically, it's a nose cone. It's a pointed piece of metal. I think the current cost is $600. I'm planning on changing it down to something a whole lot more reasonable. The only purpose it serves is an aerodynamic piece. I'm going to be needing that, and currently it costs more than some engines. So, then there are a couple of heating issues that I have with Deadly Reentry. Basically, a couple of the parts are a little bit too resilient to the heating, and I'm going to need to change those as I find them. So, that's that, and let me have a quick look at the time. So let's go ahead and get this game set up. I have recorded this once before, however, due to various glitches and wonkiness, I have decided to actually restart this from the beginning with the new mods. Also, I have played this before. I got about halfway through the Interstellar tech tree before the game got to the point where it was unstable. New versions came out, and instead of trying to update, I figured, let's go ahead and just do this from scratch and probably record it, because why not? And of course I can't continue a game that I have that I don't have one started. So this is going to be the Let's Play Kerbal Space Program Interstellar. It's going to be career mode. Let's get a proper flag. And there should be one. I personally like this one, so we'll go with that. And difficulty options. This is new. So let's go over to custom. Allow reverting flights, we're going to keep that. Allow quick loading. There are some glitches and bugs and other assorted stuff that can come up. I do intend to play this as a sort of hardcore mode. If I'm going to, well, I'm going to have two different launches. I'm going to have test launches, which are simulations. If something happens, I revert to launch or revert to the assembly building, and nothing actually happened. Then I have the actual launches where if the Kerbal dies, the Kerbal's, well, dead. Unplanned disassemblies, structural failures, stack collapses, lower stages flying through upper stages. It's all on record, and I'm going to be keeping that. The one exception, of course, is things that shouldn't happen that happen anyway. Most of this revolves around the what is it? It's the floating point number rounding, floating point math, floating point. It's where you start rounding the numbers, and you have to adjust for things. Things like phantom forces, phantom rotations that start to build up. If I dock two craft together and they start oscillating and they end up slamming into each other and blowing up, that gets reverted. There's no way that should have happened. So I'm going to keep quick loading on for that. Missing crew respawns? Nope. Auto hire crew members before flight? Nope. No entry purchase required on research. While I could do this, I don't want this series to go on for too long. Currently I'm thinking 30 to 40 episodes would be probably good. At that point, another version should be coming out, and I'll probably just start again. So I don't want to have this going on forever. Indestructible facilities, let's go ahead and leave that as is, and I'm going to allow stock vessels. Why not? So, starting funds, let's go ahead and keep this as is. Starting rep and starting science, both at 0. I am going to bump the science rewards to 200. Fund rewards to 200. This is in part due to the one of my second goals. Reputation reward 200, and funding penalties to 170. So I will get twice as much reward and almost twice as much penalty. So it does balance out. It just moves the game along a little bit faster. It's good for a let's play sort of situation. So the second sort of goal is, let's make space something where people go there, they work, they live, they come home on the weekends. Okay, so with that done, let's grab this, and now I need to set up all this other fun stuff. So we're going to use the Interstellar tree, load that. I'm going to install this update, and I'll have to restart before I can really do anything else. This is the life support. Disable the respawn. And these are just assorted values for that. Correction rates, maximum time without resources. This sort of represents the how much is currently in the system before everything turns off. And this is in seconds, so I think I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is, and leave that as is. So that is the setup and whatnot. This series, like I said, I'm planning on around 40 episodes. If something happens and the game becomes unstable to the point of unplayability, I will I'll approach it from one of two options. Option 1, I wipe the current save all of the science that I have, and rebuild basically rebuild the series from the cache I have on hand and the science and research that I've already done. So new vessels, fresh everything. See if that works. If that doesn't work, then I will have to put this on hold, sort of indefinitely, but probably 2 to 3 months while a new version comes out that's hopefully more stable, or patches or whatever get released that will fix the stability issues. Unfortunately, as is, KSP is probably going to be using right around 3 gigs of RAM, so 32-bit application, 3.7 gigs maximum. I don't have a whole lot to work with, so there's always that. So that's going to wrap up this episode 0. It's looking 16 minutes right at, so I'm going to go ahead and end that here. The first episode or 2 are going to be just very basic rocket designs, gathering science from the immediate area, the proverbial step outside with a sample scoop and make sure the sample scoop is working. After that, I'm going to start with the actual proper space program, actually getting into space. So, until then, this has been KSP. Until next time, fly safe.